Hey everybody, it's Casual Boops coming at you with another video, and today we're doing Get Good episode 11, or volume 11, I forget what I'm calling it there, but today this is going to be, a big one. We're going to talk all about crew. I'm going to explain the entire crew system, how it works, the best way to do the things in depth. This is going to be, I'm going to try to keep it short. I'm going to try not to miss anything because there's so many things. This is like the hardest thing to learn, to understand in World of Tanks. This is for crew, the crew system that has been in the game since the game started, in whatever 2011. If the now that I've made this video, or now that I'm making this video, I have basically assured you all that Crew 2.0 is going to come out at some point and make this entire video invalid. So if that does happen, I guess great waste of my time. But anyways, for now, assuming that nothing changes, this is how it works. I'm gonna try to keep this as easy to understand as possible, so bear with me. If there's something about crew that you don't understand, I will hopefully explain it to you in this video. If you also would like to read the official manuscript about how it works, you can go to the Wargaming wiki.wargaming.net crew, and I'm just gonna look at how much. So much. Look at how much there is. There is so much to know. So I'm going to try to condense that in a way that is digestible and less words. But if you want to go read the things and use precise numbers or whatever, then you can do that too. So I also have a little notepad here of things I want to cover. So hopefully I won't miss anything. So we're going to start from the very beginning. Training a crew for a tank. Let's say you get a new tank and they tell you, you're like, oh, I have this Caliban I just got from the whatever. And also skip to the things you don't want, that you want to see. If you don't need to know some of this stuff, that's totally fine. Every tank usually will come with a crew, but let's say you don't, for whatever reason. You get a tech tree tank that doesn't have a crew. You can click on it and you say recruit a crew member, and you'll need 3 for the Caliban. You get 0 rapid core, or the free one, rapid courses for 50%. Never ever do this. Never do this. This option should go away, to be honest. You should never use this. This is hot garbage. Then there's the 75%, which is fine. And then you can pay 200 gold, or sometimes this is on discount and it's half price, for a 100% fully trained crew or person for the tank, and you'll need multiple people depending on the tank, on how many crew it takes to drive the tank. I will usually, I don't know. When I was a new player, I would usually stick with this because gold is a finite, valuable resource. This is real money, so I would usually stick with this. So do that. And do that for each of your crew. You can also so that's the thing. You can let's see, that's how you train a crew for a tank. Never use 50% crews. It's not worth. It's the amount of, even the best tank in the game, if you had a 50% crew, would be hot garbage. It would just be so awful and unwieldy and useless that you would have such a bad time. So don't do that to yourself. Just go 75%, pony up for the credits, and call it good. When you move the crew to the next tank, let's say you're grinding up the British tech tree line and you're going from the Black Prince shitbox to the Carnarvon, and you want to move, or the Carnarvon to the Conqueror or whatever, you can take your crew from the Carnarvon. Let's say you have your Carnarvon crew, you just unlocked this fancy Conqueror. I'm just going to take it out and say, oh, I just got this Conqueror, I should put some crew in it. So here's what you do. You can click on this button and say send crew to the barracks. So now they all go sit in the barracks. Then you click on your Conqueror crew and you can see them sitting there. Or you click on each of these things, you can see them sitting there in the barracks waiting to be set in the Conqueror. This is how you move them up. But you'll notice, Carnarvon, you will notice that they have this red number that is substantially lower than what it should be, right? And it's red. So that's because they're not trained for this tank. They don't know. And because right now in World of Tanks, crew are stupid, so they can only understand how to use one tank at a time. If you move them from the Carnarvon and then train them for the Conqueror, they forget how to use a Carnarvon, so you can't just move them back. So this is very annoying. This is why I usually, when I'm trying to decide whether a tech tree tank is fun and good, tech tree tanks need to have their own crews dedicated to that tank, and so it's a labor to train up a crew to where I consider it to be decent for each tech tree tank that I keep. So anyways, you would do this, and then you would say retrain crew, and then the question is, do you want the rapid courses for free, the 80%? Again, never do this, never ever do this. Or the regimental 90%. This I would usually do most of the time. Or you could do this one too if you just have more gold than you care about, and sometimes again this will be on discount, but the 90% is not bad. I'll get into more specifics about all these little numbers and stuff and how it all works and how it fits together in just a second, but this is how you would do that. This is how you move one crew from one tank to the next tank and so on. So yes, okay, so that's how you move a crew from one tank to the next. If you have a premium tank, let's say you just bought yourself a Carnarvon Action X, is whatever, so you just got this tank, how does it work, whatever. One of the benefits of, put my crew back in there so I don't forget that it exists. One of the benefits of a premium tank is that it can train your similar, like a British premium heavy tank, can train your British heavy crews without a penalty. It doesn't need to be trained for the premium. So let me explain. So normally I'll just put my Carnarvon crew straight into this tank. And look at that, you can see they're in here and they're red. The number's not red. They're not getting dinged for not being understanding how. So when I said that crews can only be trained for one tank, that's true. They can only be trained for one tank, but they just magically understand how to use all the premium tanks that are of the same type. So it wouldn't work for medium tanks because this crew is trained for a heavy tank, but since this Carnarvon Action X is a British heavy tank, the crew understands how to use it, just like the shitbox A45 or the Excelsior or the Tog or even the Caliban or the Charlemagne. It's all the same, so that's fine. That's one of the main benefits, is that you can dump a crew from a Super Conqueror or a Conqueror or a Carnarvon or any other British heavy tank on the tech tree. You can put them in your premium tank and train that crew faster, even because the premium tanks get a bonus to how much crew XP gets put on the crew. And so that's one of the main benefits. You can train a crew for the premium tank. There are reasons to do that, but generally speaking, it's usually kind of a waste. Usually at least part of the reason that you buy a premium tank is to train some crew. So you'll have a crew for your Super Conch that's maybe like not very good. You want to make it better. You buy a Carnarvon Action X, you stick the crew in the Carnarvon Action X, and then now you're making your Super Conch crew better. So you don't need to have a crew for the premium dedicated to the premium tank, unless it's got a weird crew layout, like a Caliban has a weird crew layout, has 3, right, and everything else has 4 here. Then there are reasons you might want to train a crew specifically for a premium tank. If it's got a weird crew layout, maybe you just love it. You want to maximize your effectiveness in that tank, but you don't need to. That's okay. Penalties, moving crew to the next tank. Okay, terminology. I'm going to talk about terminology here real quick. So it's called the major qualification. How well a crew understands how to run the tank it's sitting in is called the major qualification. And you can see that based on this number here, right? It's got the 100, you can see there it says 115%, and it gives you a breakdown where it says 100% plus 15%. That 100 is the major qualification. This tells you that it fully understands how to run a Carnarvon. Now let me give an example here of, I think there's one that I have that isn't fully trained, like the T32. These guys are not fully trained. Their major qualification is at 88% for the T32. And so you can see they get bonuses because they've got brothers in arms and vents and things, but their major qualification is at 88%. So that's what that means. That's because I train them from something else and I move them into the T32 at the 80% or whatever. I don't know. I didn't care. So in fact, I can let's retrain them. Oh yeah. So okay. Yep. So that's what the major qualification is. The first thing that they will do. After they have finished that, then they will start training perks and skills. Perks and skills. What is a perk? What is a skill? What are these? These are two different things. What does it mean? Okay, so a perk. Well, these are all different skills and perks, the things on the list. You'll see it here if you mouse over it. It says perk comes into effect after it reaches 100%. A skill is something that comes into effect immediately and gets more effective as it gets trained up. So why this matters is if you have brothers in arms training and they're all at 99%, you will not get the effect of brothers in arms until it's at 100% for everything. Similarly for like Sixth Sense, if I had Sixth Sense trained for 99%, it would not come into effect until it's fully trained at 100%. So that's on the other end of the spectrum is repairs, for example. Repairs, if you have 1% repairs, you are getting a bonus. You're getting a bonus immediately, and the more you train repairs, the more of the bonus you're getting. And so this is why you will hear people talk about dropping skills and re-specing. So then what people will commonly do is they'll train things like repairs immediately because you're getting a bonus immediately right away. And then once it's fully trained all the way, then they will re-spec, and I'll talk about this later. They will reset the perks, and then when they get to choose different perks and skills, they'll choose things like Sixth Sense or Brothers in Arms to be trained, because then all of a sudden, boom, it's immediately active, it's working for you right now, and then you can then, just like I've got here, then you can say, all right, now we'll train repairs again, and it's at 65%, but I'm still getting a benefit. So that's how that works. That's the differentiation. That's the difference between a skill and a perk. Yes, okay. So that's the stuff in the game that I want to talk about. The next thing is buckets. I'm going to draw some pictures. So I like to think of things as buckets. And they work in order, right? So the first bucket of XP, as you play a game, if let's say you just trained a crew and it's got 75% or 80%, your XP is going to go into the first bucket. And it's going to fill all this, and this is, I'm going to call this major qualifications, right? So, major qualifications. This is that bucket. And it's going to go into this bucket until this bucket is full. Then, once this bucket is full, the training XP that you are earning the major qualifications bucket is full. Now you have you are training a perk. And so then the next bucket is for a perk. And so this is why then, after your major qualification is at 100%, then you will start training a perk or skill, and then that will fill up gradually until it's at 100%. And then once it's at 100%, you can technically train more than this, but you won't notice it, you won't see it. It'll just be there waiting to be assigned, to be dumped into the next bucket once you pick it. And this is the first skill, first perk, whatever, right here. And then of course the same thing and so forth. Once you pick a second perk, it will be sitting there, your bucket. Notice how these buckets are getting bigger, and they're not to scale, not sized right, but then your second one is right here, and so on and so forth. So second, okay, and then it will then fill up the third, the second one here. So when you okay, and well, where do we want to start here? Okay, it's important also to realize that each one of these buckets is not I've got it shaped like a cylinder, right? So it's almost like it would make you think that things are linear, but nothing is linear in this game. So basically when you train a skill or perk, the amount of XP that it takes is like this. It's exponential. So what that means is the amount of XP that it takes to get from 0 to 50% is substantially less, right? This is how much XP it is. I'm not using numbers because it doesn't matter. It's way less to get from 0 to 50 than it is to get from 50 to 100%. Oh my god, 100%. So that's why, if I'm sure you've noticed this, it takes so much longer to get from, like, you know, to get from 99 to 100%. You're going from here to here, which is quite a jump, right? Especially you get to higher skills, it takes way longer, and oh my god, we'll get there. But this is the whole point, is it's exponential. So the first 50% is way easier. The last, 10% is way harder, and so everything's exponential. So these buckets are bigger, but really they should be shaped differently. They should be kind of shaped like this, right? Because the closer to the top you get, the more it takes to fill them up, right? Does that make sense? I hope. Also, the buckets are bigger because roughly, I have the numbers written down here, but roughly to get your major qualification from zero, which you can't even get 0 major qualification. But to get from 0 to 100 is roughly 105,000 XP. XP. Okay. To get your first perk from 0% to 100% is roughly 210,000 crew XP, right? And then to get your third perk from 0 to 100 is I'm sorry, I'm saying this wrong. Your first skill is 210. Your second skill is 420,000 roughly crew XP. And you see how these are doubling. It doubles, and so every perk that you get takes twice as the next one will take twice as much XP to get as the one before it. So this is why there is when you start to get like 5 or 6 or 7 skills on a crew, it starts to really slow down because you've got so much more cost of crew XP to start moving the needle because it takes so much longer. So we'll get into why that's important. Okay, so that's how that works. So when you respec, when you retrain a crew for a tank, let's just say, for example, all right, so I've got this done. I'm going to make this new. I'm going to say, all right, so let's just say you have a crew that is fully trained for a tank. This is all full. And then they've also got maybe one perk. Say they've got one perk, major qualification. All right, let's say that you've got a crew that is trained for your Karn, and you want to move them to the Conqueror. And if you, yeah, these are great tanks. If you don't have them, you should get them. So if you do the thing not for gold, if you train them for the new tank for gold, all of these buckets stay exactly the way they are right now. If you train them for silver, you are not losing quite so much. What you're losing is I think, is it 90%? I think it's 90%. You're losing 10%, but only of the major qualification, only off the top of this one, right? So you're losing a little bit of just this one. It's not that big a deal. So that's why I usually do this, because the cost is not that high. It doesn't make a difference. However, and you will never lose progress on this one when you are just training from one tank to the next. Asterisk. The asterisk is because you remember how I was saying that there's a big difference between 99% and 100%. Well, Wargaming knows this, and so if you are at, let's just say you're at 99. Okay, so if you're at like 99% on your okay, math. How do I want to describe this? So let's say you're at 99%, and this is the bucket. This is the top part of that bucket, and you've got just a little bit above. You've been at 99% for some amount of time, because it takes some time to go from 99% to 100%. You'll be accruing XP, but it's not enough to go from 99 to 100, or let's say from 98 to 99%. That difference, especially when you get to like 3 and 4 and 5 perks, can be quite substantial. There's quite a bit of XP that it takes to move the needle, especially from 98 to 99. So Wargaming will also, there's nothing you can do about this. This is just how the system works. When you train from one tank to the next using credits only, it will take this bit, but first it will take this bit. So if you have a crew that's got like, I don't know, a bunch of perks, let's just, 99% and change, it won't show you the change. You'll just whatever. It will take this XP first, and then it will take whatever it needs left from this. So it's conceivable that you might go from a Carnarvon to a Conqueror, and your crew's at like 99%, and you retrain for credits, and it says, okay, cool. This bucket is actually still full. This one here is still full. This one is still full. Cool. They're still at 100%, even though you just paid for credits. And you're like, what the heck just happened? I shouldn't be at 100% because I paid for credits. Normally you have to pay for gold to stay at 100%. Well, what actually happened was you were probably like 2 games away from getting this full, right? This guy here. This guy was mostly the difference between 99 and 100% was probably nearly full. And so when the game saw that, they took this one first, and that was enough to fill up this red bit over here in the major qualification. So if there's some people that don't mess around, they only treat retrain with gold. I don't think that's very good value. Honestly, what I would then do is just like, it is what it is. This is honestly really good. This is pretty good use of your XP, to be quite honest with you. Also, the same concept works. Let's say you've got one skill, you've got your same crew that's got 100% of their major qualification, MQ, and they're at 100%. They've got one perk fully trained, and so these I'm drawing the buckets because this is how I think about it, and it works really well. Your first perk is full, and you've got the little plus. The little plus next to the crew's face. That means that you are ready to pick the next bucket. But until that, you don't have to pick the next bucket. Until you do that, you will still be training XP. You'll still be getting XP on that crew, and they're waiting to dump into the next bucket. If you don't do that, this is what's called overtraining, and it's a very good idea, especially in your first or second crew, first or second perk. You will intentionally not select the next perk, knowing that you're going to go from the Carnarvon soon, Karn, whatever, to the Conch, right? So if you do that then, and you train for credits, normally you would lose just like last time, except you would lose some of the major qualification, but it will take some of your first perk, some of this bucket. Well, if you've got this plus going here, it's going to take off of this some amount, however much it needs, and stick it in there, and so then boom, basically you can train for credits. It will take this XP that you weren't using anyways, and then boom, you're still at 100% when you go to the next tank. And then if you do it right, you've still got this plus where you can still click the next bucket after you've selected the next tank in the Conqueror, and then you've got, I don't know, 5% or some small amount, whatever's left over then goes in here. So that's how that works for moving from one tank to the next tank. This is very complicated. It doesn't need to be this complicated, but here we are. Now, the next thing is re-specing the crew. And I talked about this a little bit ago where we were talking about skills and perks, how you might want to have a skill for the first few things, and then once you have a few of them set up, then you re-spec to train perks. And then, you know what I mean? So you'll have, like in the game, like you would then re-spec to have Brothers in Arms and Sixth Sense, and then select repairs to be training, because you're still getting some benefit from having it 65%, right? Unlike if I were to have Brothers in Arms at 65%, I wouldn't be getting any benefit from that. So when you do that, that's different, because of course it is. So let's just say again, we've got our, use the rectangles. Let's just say we've got our bucket, and our bucket for first perk, and our bucket for the second perk. And we've got a crew that is pretty good. Let's just say that they're pretty decent, and they've got their major qualification. Here's my button. Here we go. Major qualification done, first perk done, second perk is done. You're about to train your third perk, and you're like, you know what? This is a good time to respec because I want to get Brothers in Arms and Sixth Sense on my crew. So the total amount of crew XP that you have is on this crew right now is your 105k plus your 210k plus your 420k, roughly. These are not exact numbers, but they're very close. So that means for this crew, you have, oh, don't make me do math on the fly, 105 plus 210 plus 420. You have 735,000 XP. 735k XP. So why does this matter? Why are we doing math on the internet? Why this matters is when you respec a crew, if you do it for gold, and this is the part where the gold is actually kind of starts to be worthwhile, especially if you have more highly trained crew. But you train for gold, this all stays exactly how it is, and everything is fine. If you retrain for silver, or God forbid you retrain for gold, for free, never do the free thing. Oh my God. You were started, it says 90%, I believe. I think it's 90 for 90. Let's see. We don't need to check. We can We don't need to guess, we can know. All right, if I were to go to, where is it? Go to personal file, you say reset. Oh yeah, so it's 80% for free, don't ever do that. 90%, and then 100% is our other option. So let's just say you do the 90%. What does that mean? That means that you're taking 90% of your total is what you get left. So, calculator. 735 times 0.9. That means after this is all done, you'll have 661.5 thousand XP. So that's, you're losing. The whole reason that this is such a big deal is now, now you're going from that to that, which could, it roughly depends what on what that means for where you are left over. But oh my god, here we go, paint. What that means though is that you are losing some amount of your skills, right? And so when you get more and more skilled, like when you're at 2 perks, it doesn't hurt quite so bad. But when you're at, like, let's just say you're at 6 perks and all of a sudden you retrain to 90%, now you could lose 1 entire perk doing it this way. It's just mind-blowing. So the farther along your crew is, the more of a big deal it is to lose 10% of their total XP off the top. So it's more of an incentive. If you have a crew that's got, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 perks, I would spend the gold to when I respec them to make sure that I'm not losing, you know, 500,000 free crew XP on them, because that's such a huge investment. So that's a big deal. It's only when you respec crews and reselect their perks and skills. When you're moving from tank to tank, it's not nearly as big of a deal, but when you're respecking as far as which crew's skills and perks you're choosing, that's when this is a big deal, and that's when I think it's worth spending gold, especially if you're beyond about 2 perks. If you're beyond 2, then I think it becomes worthwhile. Throw some money at the game, whatever, that's how they do it. So, okay, so the next thing is talk about retraining for the tank or respecking skills. 0 skilled crew. So why are these such a big deal? You'll hear people people talk about them a lot. 0 skill crews, as we've not talked about before, these buckets that I keep drawing are bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as you go. And so it gets to the point where, you know, by the time you're at your 3rd or 4th perk, these buckets of what is required, you have to fill these buckets to get, you know, to get full of XP to get to the next one. Well, so that's why, like, after like 4 perks, it slows way down. It's way harder, right? So what a 0 skill perk does is it says, hey, you know what? You're going to have your major qualification, but then you're also going to have, you know, usually it's Brothers in Arms, but sometimes it's like 6th Sense or things like that. So let's just say BIA. You're going to say, it's what the game says is, all right, we're going to give you your qualification, or you're going to have your qualification work as normal, but we're also going to give you Brothers in Arms, and it's not going to count toward these buckets. So that's huge. Why is that huge? Because now all of a sudden you have your buckets got half as small or half as big, right? So now you're working on a bucket this big for your 2nd perk. You're working on a bucket this big for your 3rd perk. And you're working on a bucket this big for your 4th perk, as opposed to, you know, it basically makes it so that it's half as hard to move up, right? Where like you, like more normally moving a regular crew, moving like training it from a 4th to a 5th perk is so awful. It takes a long time. But when you have a 0 skill Brothers in Arms or 0 skill 6th Sense, then all of a sudden it's the same thing except for the next one. It's like moving it from the 5th to the 6th perk takes a long time because your first one is free. It doesn't even count toward these buckets. So that's such a big deal, especially later in the game when the crew training really slows down. Doubly so, there's a couple crew out there, I think it was like Santa Claus, the commander and whatever, where they had 6th Sense and Brothers in Arms were both 0 skill. Mind-blowing. So what that means is it's the same as before, but it's even bigger of a deal. So now you're working on this tiny bucket for your 3rd skill. Then you're working on this tiny, you know, the relatively small bucket for your 4th skill, and you're working on this one for your 5th skill. So it makes it way easier to get a very skilled crew because you have already got 2 in the bag that don't even count. So that's why, especially when you start to look at how big the buckets get as they go on how much of a big deal it is, because you're not dealing with that, right? Your buckets are half as big, or in the case of a 2-skill crew, they're a quarter as big as they should be, right? Or something like that. Math, very small, doesn't matter. Okay, so we talked about overtraining. We talked about 0 skill, accelerated crew training. Last thing. So you might notice this little button here. Once you have a fully trained, once your tank is elite, right? If everything is unlocked, or if it's premium, then it'll automatically be elite. If you don't have accelerated crew training turned on and it's a tier 6 or above, you'll have field mods to grind out. That's worth doing usually, because it gives you bonuses and stuff and da 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 da. But if you don't have field mods, or if you've got field mods already figured out, or maybe you just don't care about it, you don't care about field mods, what you can do is you click this accelerated crew training button. You will no longer accumulate XP on the tank, and instead you'll see this little button right there. The little thing looks like a I don't know, like a foundation and pillars and a roof. I don't know. I think it's meant to look like a school kind of institution for learning. Doesn't matter. You'll see this icon, and the icon is placed on the crew member that is the least trained, right? And sometimes it's very close, right? Because this two is 69. These guys are both 68, but he must have just a few less XP. So he is the one that is the least trained crew. And what that means is, whenever you play any game doing anything, if your crew ends up getting, I don't know, 1,000 XP or 2,000 XP, the lowest trained crew member, who is this guy who has the thing, gets that much again. So if the entire crew gets 2,000, this guy gets 4,000. And then that will probably bump him above some other ones. So then the next one, this icon would move around to the various crew. So it basically kind of accelerates their whole thing, accelerates their crew training. And so that's really good, especially when you're in these the beginning buckets, or if you have like 5 times bonuses, or if it's a 5x weekend. Shameless thing here, what I love to do for crew training, if you are like me and you're a whale and you have lots of premium tanks, especially of a certain nation and type, right? Like I have just a metric shit ton of American medium premium tanks, right? So when there's a 5x weekend, I stick my crew in each of these, and I win one in the KR, and then I win one in the pilot, and I win one in the Super Pershing, and I win one in the Eagle 7, and so each of these is 5x, 5, 5, 5. And then they've all got accelerated crew training on, so all of a sudden your crew is just like raining in XP. It's just crazy. So that's how that works. That's why it works. It's a really good idea. On the drawback there is that you're not accumulating XP on the tank to use toward free XP conversion if you want to do that, and you're not making progress toward field mods, but maybe you don't care about that. So I think I've covered it all. There's so much. Like I said, I have this little, this is my cheat sheet. Again, I'll put a link in the description for the wiki if you want to go read everything that I've just described to you for some reason. Otherwise, I think that's basically it. It's possible that I didn't do this 100% correct, but this is probably like 95% correct, I'm pretty sure. And it's all about buckets. That's the whole thing. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. If I did something wrong, tell me in the comments. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, thanks. Bye.